Welcome to HBCU Gameday Weekly. I'm Tolly Carr along with Stephen J. Gaither. Stephen, a lot of things happening for the weekend. We'll get to the weather in just a second, but kind of going back to last week, something that happened even before the game started. We had a report today on Johnson C. Smith and some of their players alleging that they weren't fed before the game. What's that story all about?
Right, Holly. Well, the story goes that Johnson C. Smith, first year under Kermit Blunt, in Richmond to take on Virginia Union, and breakfast was at a certain time, and those individuals didn't meet that deadline and came in a couple minutes late, and they claimed that they weren't fed. Coach Kermit Blunt withheld them from being fed, and some of the players had to go down, scrounge up some change to go get some fast food, and some of them didn't even have money to eat. The game ends. Johnson C. Smith loses 33-3, and then some way somehow some of the players they just, I hate to use this pun, but they were fed up. So. They went to the media and their reports, and the kids are actually talking on camera about it, saying how that they were deprived of food and they weren't too happy about it. So it's been an interesting 24 hours here in Charlotte.
Well, I know Coach Blunt a little bit. He was the football coach when I was in school, and as old as I am, I can safely call him old school. I think if this would have happened in 1993, 94, 95, when their internet was in its infancy, there was no social media, I don't think this would have been a big deal. What about you?
Yeah, well, it's one of those situations where it's a unique day and time, like you say. Coach Blunt, he's a veteran. He's been around for a while. He's been coaching, since the '80s. A player back in the '70s, so he's old school. And a lot of these players are definitely not. So it's definitely one of those things where the social media age and public relations probably was a big thing in this. But it's I thought about it, and you understand him trying to instill discipline, and I know, knowing Coach Blunt, I know what he was going for. But I've talked to a couple people that think, he probably, he definitely, if this is true, if everything that they say is true, he probably, crossed the line to a certain extent. So it's a testy situation.
Well, if you're not early, you're late, is what they often say. So, Stephen, let's take a look at the weather now. This is going to be a weekend that who knows what's going to happen. You might see some upsets. You might see some ugly games. We have Hurricane Joaquin that's off the coast, that's slated to bring a lot of rain to the East Coast, and that can just wreak havoc, and who knows what will happen on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday, here, as we sit here, on Thursday, it's a total mystery to everyone. Weather is unpredictable, and both of us have journalism degrees and not meteorology, and meteorologists, so we don't really know. We just know what we hear. But it does look like that the weather is definitely going to play a role in this weekend's games. Even if if the hurricane doesn't come up on the East Coast, there's a front already coming through. So you got Howard having their homecoming in D.C. And anyone who knows about that, they know that they pretty much shut the city down. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects those guys. And then also the games. Last week I went out on a limb and I predicted Norfolk State would beat Hampton, much largely because of the weather, because it was going to be an ugly, nasty day, not necessarily the greatest passing day, and it came to fruition. So teams that are a little bit more balanced or are able to run the ball, they might have more success this week than teams that are more based on passing, at least up and down the East Coast. So it's going to be very interesting to see, what we get.
So do you care to talk about any of the picks you got wrong last week, or we're just talking about what you did wrong, what you got right? There's going to be some things, I don't even remember any of the picks that I got wrong last week. I just remember I predicted two teams, Norfolk State and Winston-Salem State, were going to get their first win, and they did, and I was happy with that. So, last week's over. This is a different week. I just had to throw that in for context. All right, Winston-Salem State starts a new quarterback. Does that continue into winning ways this weekend?
Yeah, about that. It's a toss-up. It could go either way. Winston, did get the win last week. It looked a lot better. They actually scored multiple touchdowns versus the first couple of weeks when they didn't do that. But they still turned the ball over 3 times. And, luckily they forced some turnovers of their own, and they were able to pick up the win against Elizabeth City. But Chowan's a team that can definitely play. I mean, they beat Fayetteville State already, and they've beaten Delaware State, the Division I AA school, FCS school. So, they're a team that, is not going to be taken lightly. Plus, Winston put up 70 points on them last year. And Winston hasn't scored, even half that many. Winston's barely scored half that many points itself this year. So, so I know the guys at Chowan are definitely going to be looking for, as you say, the big payback last week.
Tuskegee will be in town. They're playing UNCP. They're a homecoming opponent. Weather, again, might make a big impact on that game. But pretty cool that Tuskegee will be here in North Carolina.
Right, yeah. This is 2 years in a row. They were there last year at Winston-Salem State. And then they're hoping to make this year a more successful trip because they lost last year. So, but they're a team that is, just doing what they're supposed to do. They're winning. They're winning games, and they're coming up against a UNCP program that has done very well against CIAA competition. So it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against Tuskegee, who are the reigning kings of the SIAC in Division II football.
Coming off of vacation, both the Aggies and the Eagles back in action. Do you think those guys will be a little rusty, a little rested? I know there were some injuries there that they dealt with coming off their ACC MEAC matchup from a couple of weeks ago, but good to see those guys back on the field this weekend.
Right, definitely. Yeah, both those teams are in action. A&T is on the road at Hampton, which is going to be a great game just for the fact that it's Hampton head coach Kino Maynor's alma mater. He graduated from there. He led those guys to some MEAC titles back in the day. And his team, didn't perform well against them the last time on national television. They got ran for all kind of yards against Tariq Cohen. You talk about a running game and a running team and this weather this week. I think the weather is definitely going to favor North Carolina A&T with Tariq Cohen, who is, who is one of the great running backs in FCS football. They are coming off a win against Elon. They have been banged up in the passing game, so look for them to try to run the ball up Hampton's throats. Hampton seems to have improved slightly defensively, but they're still a little weak, when it comes to stopping the run, as we saw last week. And then we saw a little bit of that against Howard. So Hampton is going to have his hands full at home. And then you go down to Central. They're going to be hosting Bethune-Cookman. That's going to be a very interesting matchup. These are two of the 5 teams who got a piece of the MEAC last year. And two team, you have a team in Central who was started off hot with St. Aug, but they had to play 2 FBS games back to back. So you really kind of want to see where those guys measure up against FCS MEAC competition. So it's going to go a long way. I think for an early season matchup, this is pretty significant against them. If they can get this win, then they're going to feel pretty good about themselves. If they start off 0-1 against Bethune-Cookman, you're going to see there's going to be it's going to be early, but there's going to be a hole to climb out of. And Bethune-Cookman has won the last couple of weeks, not necessarily won pretty. They beat Grambling State by 3 and beat Lane by 4. So but they are coming off of a good win against Savannah State. So those guys are going to be looking to show that they are still, a force to be reckoned with in the MEAC.
When you look at things that have, a little bit of historical perspective, I know that we just heard the announcement for the Black College Sports Hall of Fame today. What news do we have there?
Right. So today the news came out, the finalists for the Black College Football Hall of Fame. If you guys don't know about that, it's in Atlanta. It's a pretty new phenomenon. But there's always, especially since it's so early in this hall's classes, there's a lot of great talent there, a lot of Hall of Fame talent. One of the headliners of this class would be Enos Williams, who was just inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Also, another Pro Football Hall of Famer in Emmett Thomas, who used to play for Kansas City back in the day when they were in AFL. He's from Bishop College, which no longer plays football. And then there's also there's really some great nicknames that stand out in this as well, and that is Joe 747 Adams from Tennessee State, Parnell Pay Dirt Dickinson from Mississippi Valley State, and Gary Big Hands Johnson And who could forget the immortal Leo Lincoln Locomotive Lewis? Yes, that's it. Leo Lincoln Locomotive Lewis. From Lincoln University. So all kind of L's going on there. And then you've got Timothy Newsome from Winston-Salem State, who went on to play with the Dallas Cowboys for a number of years. So there's a very star-studded class that we have, of nominees. So these are just the people that they have to choose from. So not all of these guys are going to get on the list. So if you go to HBCUGameday.com, you'll see the full list there. But a lot of great talent. Just shows you how much talent there has gone through the HBCU ranks over the years.
Well, you need a nickname. We'll start calling you Stephen Pick'em Gaither. How about that?
Pick them right or pick them wrong. That's the thing. We don't really know, but we'll work on it. But I don't know if I can compete with Leo Lincoln Locomotive Lewis or Gary Big Hands Johnson. That's I don't know. I don't know. We have to work on that.
Hey, he was the original LL Cool J. How about that?
LLLL Cool J.
Yeah. So you're going to catch up with Timmy Newsome. So we'll look to hear that on our social media channels, as well as updates of all the games on Saturday. Follow us on Twitter at HBCU Gameday. I'm Tolly Carr. He is Stephen Pick'em Gaither. We're going to make that nickname stick. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the games.